Every other build you see on your YouTube recommended is the Zimmerman killer. Stun guns, double Morley's, missile boat, everyone seems to have some key to beating the meta. And the weird part is it seems to be working? But that can't be, these things are totally busted! They stun anything midweight and lighter basically instantly, they're small enough while doing so for you to stick them on an incredibly nimble AC, they act as both a stagger tool and a crit damage tool. How are people losing? Turns out people are just using them wrong. I didn't really think they'd need one, but here's a guide to dual Zimmermans. Don't just hold W. And guide. Okay, I'll be a little more detailed. This guide's for mid to lightweight Zimmerman users since I hate running heavy tetra and I don't figure heavy tetra Zimmer players need the help. If you watch these Zimmer killer videos, you'll notice no one ever shows fights against heavy tetra. With midweight Zimmermans, our game plan will require some more movement to avoid our opponent's big attacks. We won't be able to just tank through them. To accomplish this, we'll need a big generator and a core that'll amplify it enough to keep our energy recharge stat high. The key to this is this anti-generator, which will let us take out missile boats and any other build that wants to play keep away. Thanks to the actually absurd EN pool this gives us, we should be able to outrun anyone who gets in our way and even boost left and right to avoid missiles and other threats, while still having enough leftover energy to AB kick. I'm choosing this over Coral Gen due to personal preference and the fact that the much faster redline recovery of this anti opens up air options that would be impossible on the Coral Gen, which I'll go over later. Try to leave a big gap between your total and max EN load so your supply efficiency hits at least 3k-ish. A little less is okay, but you'll need more finesse. Again, make sure your core helps facilitate this. Each has a different generator output adjustment which raises or lowers your total EN load, so you'll want to balance that and stability. I run double Zims in my hands and double Huxleys on my back. Versus heavier players, it can be advantageous to run Coral Shield on the left shoulder, in which case, since single Huxley is borderline bad, you'll want to replace your right shoulder with something to riposte with. That is, something that'll deal big damage during ACS overload. I prefer the Truinos, but something like the Songbirds could work. Depending on what you're running in this case, you might want to swap out the Ocellus for the Abbot. The new weapon means the other FCS stats have suddenly become important, or you may need to save more energy to raise your supply efficiency. Whatever booster fits your playstyle best, I'm using the NGI 001s. Assault Armor for its ability to counter other players' expansions, and because the free ACS overload can instantly win us matches, especially if our opponent has expended their expansion option already. When it comes to your frame, strike your favorite balance between stability and style. In a lot of ways, attitude stability is your real health bar. The goal is to hit around 1800. This value is able to withstand kick into double Zimmerman with some extra space. My kit without shield hits 1700, which works fine. With shield, I let myself drop to 1600 since I'm negating a lot of stagger anyway. Figure out your core first since it affects your energy load, which affects how fast your generator recharges. Sort by stability high to low and move down the list until you see something that gives you good supply efficiency and good stability. I'm using Shade Eye instead of the VVP-44D for my head for style reasons. I like the knocked arms just fine visually, and they got perfect firearm specs, so I stick with those. The Howl legs look great and are the best midweight option stability-wise. Against most builds, when you load into the match, your goal is to get on top of your opponent and never let them go. AB right off the bat and hard lock. Use the stupid high EN pool you gave yourself to boost side to side as needed to avoid attacks and stay on target to kick. If you're having trouble landing your kick, spend some time in the arena to learn the timing. You want to hit the button earlier than you'd think. Controller players might also help to bind Assault Boost to triangle instead of L3, it's easier to press. After kick, pop Huxleys and fire Zimmermans. Repeat Zim and kick until stagger, then repeat Zim and kick until they're dead. If you're using them right, you should basically never miss. If you fire directly after you or your opponent quick boost, or directly after you perform a quick turn, either manually or because your hard lock turned you 180 degrees, your tracking will be lagging behind your opponent and you'll waste a shot. They can also miss if you're too close to your opponent, as they'll accidentally fire behind your opponent instead of into them. After you ACS overload your opponent, they'll probably either Assault Armor or Pulse Armor. In both cases, it's occasionally viable to Assault Armor your opponent straight back, which someone at From decided was okay. It's generally fair to assume your opponent will fall for this counterattack the first time, and doing so will immediately cancel your opponent's Pulse Armor and or immediately ACS overload them. Subsequent times they may wise up and quick boost out of range, which leaves you open to counterattack. So try and save it for when they approach you for a free ACS overload, which should end up winning you the match. If you're running shield, you'll probably want to use it after you close into range with AB, especially in the mirror. It's worth mentioning that activating your shield stops your assault boost, so you want to be sure you're close enough to start putting down the pressure before you use it. Try to dodge with side boost instead if you're not close enough. The goal is to identify what your opponent is using for big damage, then use shield to negate it. That should be obvious, but you're a W holding Zimmer player, so I'm playing it safe. Instant Guard Shield can also work to counter Assault Armor if you've already used yours for damage, or if you want to guarantee counterplay without gambling on if your opponent is smart enough to back off after using Assault Armor. You only have two annoying matchups. The first is missile builds. These are only dangerous before you've closed the gap. AB towards them using your insane generator output to follow them straight into the air. The easiest way to dodge aperitif and soup missiles is to just AB past them as they fly towards you, so do exactly that. If you AB past them before they start their acceleration, however, they'll home into you properly and you'll need to blind dodge them as they come up from behind, so you may want to side boost to slow your forward momentum, or cancel AB entirely to avoid that. Once you're up close, you can do your usual game plan, but in midair. You should recover a small portion of your bar in midair if and when you redline, which will be enough to perform a vanishingly quick AB into AB kick, keeping you in midair and on top of the boat. If you lose them, back off to the ground and regain your energy, then try another approach. As soon as you gain a significant life lead, back off and find cover. You'll also want to find cover if you redline too far away from your opponent to chase with kick and need to recover. If they're not planning on playing with you, refuse to play with them straight back. Most players will get frustrated and return to the ground where you can finish them off. The ones that don't do that will just lose to timeouts. Of course, this only works if you have cover to hide behind, so don't take your opponents to watch point if you have a choice. The second and worst matchup for you is Heavy Tetra Zimmermans. For this matchup, you're going to need the shield. Block as much damage as you can to try and even the odds, but honestly, this is probably your only losing matchup. If you're in tournament, I recommend learning a secondary build to mid-rate Zimmermans as a counterpick to Heavy Tetra specifically. So yeah, that should be enough to get whoever you're in a lobby with to kick you. Hopefully this guide means that Zimmer players get so good that From nerfs them, and if they don't, then I'll have more good players to fight, so it's a win-win for me. Happy hunting. Hey, post-video Arklin here. This is not an Armored Core channel, or at least not exclusively. I'll probably post more AC videos in the future just because I love the game so much, but it's mostly just a channel where I put out whatever the heck I feel like. So if you are interested in that, take a look at some of the other stuff I've made to make sure that it's something that you're actually interested in, and then hit that subscribe button if you like what I make. Thank you. I've been Arklin. Thanks for watching.